Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Justin McAleece.
Thank you for saying your name out loud so that I can learn how to pronounce that correctly.
Yep, it's like if there's an A between the M and the C. That's the easiest way to say it, McAleece.
Yeah. So who are you? What do you do?
I'm a filmmaker from Fresno, California. It's the simplest way to say it. I have a business called Blair Media that we do filmmaking and all sorts of video production with.
Yeah, awesome. How did you first get started doing film?
I switched my major in college. I was going to be a mechanical engineer, and then I wasn't having that. And so I switched over to filmmaking, essentially. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 some odd years since then. So it's been cool. I don't see how it could have ended up any other way.
Yeah. So I guess why did you start with mechanical engineering, and then what sort of brought you over to film later?
Yeah, I think I've always liked technology. I've always been interested in how things are put together, how they're built. And I realized at some point that, for one, I sucked at calculus. And for two, I wasn't all that interested. It felt really just, there wasn't a lot of, a word I like, ebullience within that realm. It seemed like a lot of very orderly, boring, slow, dry, just like, I wasn't feeling it. So anyway, my friends and I were making videos, and that just seemed like so much more fun. And we were doing sort of Jackass-y type stuff back then, before Jackass was around and all that. Nothing too crazy, but we were having fun doing that. And so I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. Clerks had just come out, the Kevin Smith movie, and I was like, I could do better than that, which isn't necessarily true, but it seemed like a good idea at the time, and so we switched over, and yeah, I just been doing it ever since, and it's taken me very many directions that I didn't think I was going to be going in at all.
Yeah, definitely. I guess so. Since you mentioned Clerks, what are some of your bigger influences as you were starting out, that like as you were watching films growing up and you're like, man, I want to do that?
Yeah, it's hard to say because there's always the stuff you love and that you really think is great, but then that's not necessarily like an attainable thing that you can think that you would do. I mean, if you're a singer-songwriter that, plays acoustic guitar, you probably also want to be Led Zeppelin or whatever, like on the stage with all these other people in this big, huge, bombastic band or whatever, but that doesn't mean that that's what you're going to do. So it's like, around then I did a freshman, sophomore year of college. I really liked the movie, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, the Guy Ritchie movie. That felt very like indie. And I actually had like a bad VHS copy of it that was, that had gone through, like anti-pirating stuff. So it was really wavy and it was broken sort of. And somehow that added to the appeal of it. I gave it to my buddy one time to watch, and I was like, hey man, check this out. This is my favorite movie, whatever. And it's like, it's all messed up. I couldn't even finish it. And I was like, no, dude, that's part of it. It's great. But it was, it would like go dark for a few seconds and then sort of come back up. And anyway, so I think that was one of the like sort of attainable type feeling movies back then. And there was some other, that movie Slacker, or there was Slacker, but then there was also Dazed and Confused. There was something about that felt attainable and like you could do that, simple stories. So both of those are Richard Linklater movies. And yeah, it was, it was a much different time in independent film than it is now, with all your Spike Lees and a ton of other filmmakers that were important then that just went out with a few $100,000 and made a movie, and El Mariachi and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And then what are you into now? I guess whose movies and what's influencing you now and what's driving you?
Yeah. There's a big divide, I think, between like what I can do as a filmmaker or like what can be done as an independent filmmaker who doesn't have $1 million, a $5, $10, $100 million budget in the movies that I like. So it's sort of hard to say like, oh, I want to like, these are the ones that I still envision doing versus like what other people are doing. So I love a lot of, sort of populist filmmakers. There's certainly the Coen brothers, Wes Anderson, David Fincher, P.T. Anderson. There's a lot of filmmakers that I think make brilliant stuff these days. But that's like, it's a different level in many ways. And not to say that we couldn't, my friends and I couldn't write a story as good, maybe, hopefully. Not to say that we couldn't make something look quite the same level of beauty or level of complexity of a shot or something like that. There's some of those things that are certainly attainable. But I think it's a thing of just getting those people on board, those sorts of actors to be in your project is definitely a whole nother echelon that, like, it's hard to get there. Packaging is a bitch. And that stuff is what that comes down to. You have to marry your distribution with your project, with your actors, with your funding, all simultaneously. And it's one of those things of, like, when you go to get a job and they're like, we need 5 years experience to get this job. And you're like, well, how do I get the job without 5 years experience? That whole like catch-22. That's what filmmaking is a lot of times.
Yeah. So. You are talking a lot about kind of like the filmmaking process and like budgets and stuff. So like, I guess just lay it out for those of us who, like, we think we know and like we follow media and like Hollywood, and there's like this perception of what it really is, but it's not actually. Nobody really knows unless they're like in the trenches doing it like you are. So like for you, what is the process of making a film?
Yeah. So as a professional video production director of photography, editor, all those things, like, that's my day job. When I'm making a movie or trying to work on my own personal indie film, that's also my day job. So it sort of goes between. So, the movie that I made, that I started making essentially 11 years ago, 2009, is Brick Madness. And that's a mockumentary about a national bricks tournament, Lego tournament. So I was working on it in a variety of ways when I had the time, when I wasn't shooting other stuff for other clients. And we were trying to do whatever we could to get it done. And, clearly it took a very long time to do that. And so you're trying to make the money and sustain your own company and do all the things to have a successful video production company while you're trying to do video production on the other side of it simultaneously. And that can be very difficult. It's still a better place to be than just be a quote unquote filmmaker, like going from project to project, hoping that you can make enough money on the last one to be able to sustain yourself for the next one, because that's become an increasingly difficult thing to do. 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe 2000s, like, that was possible. There is a very large difference between the two things now. I think it is no longer in the last couple of years like you can make a movie for $100,000 without like bigger talent than you would think that you would be able to get, and expect to get all $100,000 of that back and expect to make the money to actually put food on the table. Like, to think that you could just go do 100, spend 100, even if it wasn't your money, and then get 250 back to pay for your time. Like, that's a dice roll. That's a real, you got to hit the lottery a couple times to make that happen. If people do it, it's difficult. And so I would say my point is, like, having a video production company to rely on to bring in the money and to do your, to just provide that base, I think has worked out really well for me. And I'm very fortunate to be able to have that and to be able to go do other people's movies and work on their independent films, as part of that process. So it's a complicated thing nowadays. And I think working on other people's projects and getting paid to work as actual crew members is a much more sustainable way to do it than to just be like, here's my movie, I need a couple $100,000, we'll make it back, it'll be great. Like, that's a tough sell in 2020, maybe not even 2017, but for sure 2020. Yeah. And there's so much good content out there. That's a lot of what it comes down to.
Yeah. And then, kind of now as well as, like, I don't know, I feel like I spend almost as much time on, like, streaming services as I do YouTube, for example. And so, like, you kind of talked about just, like, content in general. And so, like, there's a lot of really good film and content in general that's coming through YouTube and everything. So how has that kind of landscape shifted in, I don't know, especially recently with like just a lot of influencer culture and like YouTube and all this sort of stuff that's like the difference between film and content?
Yeah, it's a very what would you say? There aren't many boundaries now with the way that stuff's all put together. And that's a good thing. It's not necessarily a good thing for the creators in terms of if you're one of the sort of old school people that just wants to go make a movie, wants to make a 90-minute to a 120-minute thing and put that out there, put it in film festivals, get it picked up by a distributor, get people to see it, and put it in a theater, all that sort of stuff. Like, that's just not a good reality these days. And so maybe, and I don't really know, but maybe your 20-year-old Justin today, who was born in 2000, for instance, would not even really give a damn about that. Maybe that wouldn't be the thing he was looking for. Maybe he would just want to go and make YouTube videos. I mean, that's like when you ask kids these days, are like, what do you want to do with your life? And like, be a YouTube star. Like, that's their actual vocation. And you're like, well, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, what are you providing to the world? And you're like, oh, views. Like, there was it's a total side thing, but there was something on Kids Are Effing Stupid is this subreddit. And anyway, I think it was on that. I forget. But anyway, it was a kid. Someone's like, hey, I was hanging out with my niece the other day, and she literally said, okay, like and subscribe, and left. And I think she literally thinks that's how you say goodbye. Like, she doesn't know that that's not the same thing. Wow. Okay, cool. Like and subscribe. Which is like insane. That it's just weird. Yeah. So anyway, great things are being made on YouTube, but it's a whole different world. It's like, that's not, it's sort of like being like, I'm a musician. I'm like, well, I paint. Like, in some ways, that's the difference between making what you would say is traditional movies and what you would say is like 2-minute YouTube videos with graphics to catch people's attention, CGI type stuff. And I'm not demeaning that by any means. I'm saying I don't understand it as well as some people. And it's also become a world where, like, which is good, because you have to be the artist that, if you have a YouTube channel and you get the views, then eventually other people with money and power and whatever it happens to be, sponsorships, will be able to put you on a bigger platform, theoretically. I mean, YouTube's a pretty big platform, but they'll be able to do that. And that wasn't like how it used to be. It used to be like you would put it at a film festival, and then you got in and someone saw it in one of the film festivals, and then they're like, yes, we like this and we'll do something with it. And you didn't have to have an audience then. Like, if it was your first movie, Steven Soderbergh's first movie at a film festival didn't actually have an audience yet. It had 100 people there, but he didn't have 1 million subscribers. He hadn't already built that whole thing. And so it's this weird thing where, like, people actually had to the people with the money actually had to wager something back then. They actually had to have talent at seeing what it was. And like, I'm going to put my money on this dude and this person. They're going to make something in the world. And that's not how it is at all anymore. Cause they're like, well, they got 1 million subscribers. I'm just going to steal that. I'm just going to take some value out of that. And so there's no talent scouting whatsoever anymore in that sort of sense. It doesn't, because the artists themselves have already had to prove 100% of what they are. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, that is very similar to how the music industry has gone as well. In that, I mean, I'm a musician, and so it's like it is very much like, if you can do it yourself, then maybe we'll finance you or like sign you or whatever it might be. But it is kind of this backwards thing. And so I guess for you,
are you like, yeah, but if I can do it myself, then why do I need you?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's that weird double-edged sword there, right? You're like, oh, well, prove yourself, and then we'll come care. And we're like, yeah, but how the hell am I going to get there without some help?
I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, it's just a weird The incentivizing is just odd and backwards and all that. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, you're good. Well, I guess so. What does a like successful movie look like to you whenever you make a film and like, great, we did great. What criteria are you meeting to call that great?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of days, in a lot of ways, it is like we made back our money and we got to go make another one that will hopefully make back our money. And it's part of just the fun of doing it and the fun of being part of that process and to be able to make a movie and for the actual art of like, God damn it, I made a film and people get to watch this film. Like that was obviously the reason you got into it in the first place. And hopefully you get enough sustaining usefulness out of like being in the theater when people watch it and laugh and cry and have a good time and whatever it happens to be like that better be a lot for 5 years because it might be a while before you get to make another one and before it gets to be seen by anyone or you make any money. I mean, it's just a rough place right now for independent film. And I'm not speaking from like, woe is me. I honestly have done director of photography work way more than I've done directing work in the last 10 years or 20 years on independent films. So I'm not even saying like my projects haven't worked out, so the industry sucks. It's not that, I swear. Because I don't know if my 2 projects this year will work out or not because I have a movie coming out in December and a movie coming out in January. Talk to me in February and maybe I'll be like, yeah, the industry sucks. Screw those assholes. No, but I'm just like the ones that I've DP'd, some have come out and some haven't. But none of them have been like, oh man, that was great. We made triple our budget. We're going to make another one tomorrow. You know, that's that's a tough thing these days.
Yeah. Well, so tell me about your movies. What are you making? What are you excited about? And what's it? I guess it's hard to be like, hard not to be like, what is it like? Because we can only measure things by like other things that we've seen. But like, what are your movies?
Yeah. So if we're going to talk about Brick Madness, I mean, that's a mockumentary. It's sort of in the style of Christopher Guest, even though we haven't been told specifically that they were too similar, which has been really good. We've got some great feedback about that. So Christopher Guest makes movies like Best in Show, A Mighty Wind, and Waiting for Guffman. And then there was Spinal Tap. He wasn't quite as, he didn't write and direct the same as the other ones, but he was heavily involved in that. And so that was something that I just really liked the theme of and the style of and all that. And we went to go make that. And this is like pre-Office. Well, not quite, but this is around the time of The Office. This is pre a lot of the other shows that came out after that. I might be messing up my timelines, but Modern Family, Parks and Rec, The Office. This is all this stuff that like people didn't realize those were mockumentaries. Yeah. They thought they just like didn't get it. They're like, oh, sometimes Jim looks at the camera. Like, they didn't get the concept of that because we never saw the crew in any of those, and they sort of played fast and loose with the rules of like how that worked and all that. So anyway, that's something that we're super accustomed to now, but we just didn't know the name of it, and we didn't know the machine behind it of what was happening. But these days, that's the type of movie that Brick Madness is, and it's comedy, and it's got a lot of smart asses in it, and it's got a lot of like stuff that sort of has multiple levels, hopefully with the comedy, some sort of broad slapsticky type stuff, but there's hopefully a lot of stuff that's sort of subversive or just I like dry comedy a lot, and my friends and I worked for many weekends getting together, and we would just have these writing weekends, and that's all we did for 3 days was just like write jokes and try to punch up the script and try to come up with better concepts and all that stuff. So we spent a lot of time just like trying to pack it as full of funny stuff, what we thought was funny, as possible, and that's really what it is. And underneath that, I think it has a lot of heart. I think it's really about how Lego and brick building is like a culture that most people wouldn't realize that adults are still doing. It's just like a kid's thing that really is a thriving art scene in and of itself. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that sort of thing as it relates to a lot of other art disciplines that people wouldn't think is art. just because you don't have a paintbrush in your hand or a guitar in your hand doesn't mean you're not creating art.
Yeah.
And so that was really what we tried to get across on screen. And just, it's fun. There's no politics at all. There's no coronavirus. There's like, it's very, I wouldn't say it's completely lighthearted because it's not 100% accurate, but it's a fun movie that you can walk away with a smile. It's got a great rap song at the end that we made for the movie. And it just, I think it's one of those things that you can walk away with and be like, all right, that was fun. I like that. This is cool. I'm a little happier than I was hour and a half ago. So that's what we're going for.
And then what's the other ones, whatever?
Oh, yeah. So Better is a very different project. That's a documentary, an actual documentary. And that's, we got together with this guy, Jonathan Baylor. He's a New York Times bestselling author, has a whole program, Sane Solution it's called. And we had done work with him in the past 6-8 years ago, something, and done a lot of stuff. And so he approached us and we basically decided to make this documentary. It's called Better. And it's about diabetes. It's about diabetes and obesity. And it's about shame and how your thoughts work and how we've been lied to about what foods we should be eating and how sort of how we've been programmed to be ignorant about how our bodies work with regards to brain, gut, and hormones and how all that system ties together. So we interviewed something like 22 people that suffer from diabetes and have many of them are diabetes heroes, as we call them in the movie, that have conquered it in one way or another. And we talked to 5 Harvard doctors to get the real science behind all this stuff. So it was an incredible journey. It's, I think, a very helpful, useful, like actual real world tangible movie that you can watch and you could like change your life the minute after watching that movie. And I think it has an excellent message and just can get people to feel and believe in a way that they hadn't, an hour and a half before. It definitely has something there that I haven't seen in many other movies. Yeah,
definitely. Jonathan Baylor does ring a bell, and I feel like I've heard the name through other podcasts or whatever. But
yeah, it could be. He had a book. A couple books. The Calorie Myth is one of them, and great books, simple books. I mean, it's not overly simple, but it's not a 500-page tome with a lot of misleading directions. Like, it's clear to the point. Like, this is if you want to stay thin, stay healthy, here's what you do, proven by science, go for it. And it's really great. Yeah.
Since the films that you're mentioning are like kind of two sides of like, it's a mockumentary and then a documentary. I feel like there's a difference to, I feel like, even for me, whenever I write songs that are like about myself versus like stories that I'm just telling, there's a difference between like interacting with fiction and interacting with nonfiction. I guess, how do you approach that?
Yeah. I mean, at the core of anything, you're trying to tell a story in the most effective way possible. You're trying to tap into what is true in the world, and you're trying to have a viewpoint that is uniquely yours so that you can bring something new to what is true in the world so that other people can hopefully gauge it for themselves and understand it in a new way. I mean, that's at the genesis of anything that you're being honest about. And so I think whether you're telling a completely true story or a completely made up story, you still have to approach it from the same direction. And I think that's true about comedy versus drama. That's one of those things that any great sort of comedian acting in film will tell you is like, you play the line straight. You play it as if it were drama. You don't actually change much of what you're doing because the line and the situation is funny. That stuff is funny, but your awareness of it being funny is very rarely the funny part, So I think at the core of everything is just the truth of the situation, and that's what powers it.
Yeah, Definitely. Kind of a little bit more on just like creativity and art and stuff. Is there such a thing as bad filmmaking or bad movies?
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michael Bay is terrible in my opinion. I mean, he's awful. And it's not because he's bad at making, I mean, in my opinion, he's bad at making a lot of action scenes too, but that's not his main problem. His main problem, in my opinion, is that he doesn't think much of his audience. He thinks that they're very ignorant. He thinks that, or at least his movies would purvey this fact. He doesn't have much respect for them. So he's going to hold their hands through stuff and like dumb it down as much as possible. He's going to, I mean, literally reuse footage from old movies. I don't know if you've seen those things before, but literally takes footage from Bad Boys and puts it into a Transformers movie and sells you the same shit twice. I mean, that's a line that I don't think you should cross no matter what. That's just insulting. And so I don't think he takes the time as a filmmaker, and I'm using him as a proxy for other filmmakers. Mm-hmm. I don't think they take the time to make sure that it works out on paper as part of the respect that they have for the process. And I think that's fundamentally insulting. So that's what I don't like about that situation. You know, and I don't really think of that as art per se. I don't think of that as like something that's not Transformers 4 is not a story that when he was 12, he felt like he had to tell. Like it was important to him in the world as how to make people understand the human condition in a unique new way. It's not that. And there's nothing in it that is that. I haven't watched the damn movie. I don't know. But I mean, I have to believe there's nothing in it that touches at the core the truth of something in a way that could help people reimagine or understand the human condition. It just doesn't exist. And so at that point, you're not even trying, man. You're just trying to make money, and you're good at that. But you're not trying to give us what, in my opinion, art is made for. And if you can't do that on top of or sort of subversively in a shitty action movie, if you can't at least try to do that, then like get out, man. I don't know. That's what I think. And there's plenty of music that's like that too. I mean, for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, this, country music is just rife with it, of that sort of selling you the same thing that they sold you last week and just, paint by numbers. And that's just like, you have an opportunity to do something better and you don't take it. And you're the reason why the industry as a whole is doing, in my opinion, things that are like regressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my take on it.
And kind of alongside that, but it's a little bit different too, because I usually ask this question, which is like, do you separate art from the artist in the context of music? But music usually has like a lot less people involved, whereas in filmmaking, like there's so many different things that everyone involved is doing that it's not even necessarily like the main creative's like vision in every way. But like, I guess, do you separate art from the artist is the core of the question.
Well, I mean, from a Michael Bay perspective, I don't, no, just in terms of like, what you're talking about is if you are a band, go back to a singer-songwriter, right? So you make your own songs, you play your own instruments, maybe you have a couple session players or something, but it's not much. It's like, it's basically you. And you got an engineer and you got 3 people in the booth or whatever. You're not taking a bunch of people's lives and then like making them work on schlocky crap. Like it may be 3 people, maybe you suck and maybe it's 3 people, but it's not 500 people or 10 or 1,000 people spending like large parts of their lives, a year of their lives, to make something that is absolutely replaceable, recyclable, Like it will not stand the test of time. It has nothing. It was not intended to stand the test of time. And so to me, like if I want to get really, maliciously profound about it, I would say that like someone like Michael Bay, who has, in my opinion, that fundamental disregard for the process, is actually doing that. Not only is he choosing to make a thing, and once again, it's like it's other filmmakers too.
Right.
But he's choosing to make a piece of shit, and he's also like taking all these other 1 million man hours along with him, like, hey, make my piece of shit for me. You'll get paid. That's cool. Everyone likes to get paid, but you're gonna know that this is garbage. And there's something insidious about that in music, I don't think it exists in the same way at all, because it's not the same type of team sport. It's not a 500-person team.
Oh yeah,
it is a 4 or 5 or 10-person team or whatever it happens to be. So I just think it's different. I don't think it's nearly as bad.
Yeah, but then it does kind of go into like because I think, I don't know, I rewatched the Lord of the Rings movies recently with my wife, and it's like, ooh, Harvey Weinstein's name is like right there in the opening credits.
From that perspective, that's a different thing. The Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, Harvey Weinstein sort of thing, or for instance, Kevin Spacey. Yeah, it's like these dudes suck. Clearly, they've done bad things. Do you separate them? Yeah, that separation, that's a harder thing to say. And I would posit too that people act out on things. People create art, like deep, important art, a lot of times from their own like internal struggle, their deep-seated problems that they have with the world and with themselves, right? And so the idea that you would only get art from people who are like happy or well-adjusted would mean you'd get a lot of shitty art. Like it wouldn't happen. And so there's a reason that we quasi-deify a lot of people who died young too. If we're talking about the 27 Club and all that, we were reading a whole thing about Edgar Allan Poe. He died when he was 40 within mysterious ways. But the 27 Club, like those are all tortured people in one way or another, and drugs were obviously a part of all of those stories. But they made the stuff that we care about and that has stood the test of time because there was something deep within them that needed to be solved. And some of them were able to solve it, at least for the time being, talking about like Chris Cornell or something. But then later probably found a way that it then was unsolved again, maybe. But what I want to say, so it's you don't want only art from people that are happy. That's going to suck. Yeah. You also don't want art from pedophiles. That's also going to suck. But you don't know where that line is until it happens to that thing. And it might make you feel weird about it later, but I don't think it necessarily ruins the thing. I mean, that's up to... I think it ruins it as much... I think it's very much a personal thing to where, like, you don't want to listen to the song. Forever... there was a Bob Marley song that I did not want to hear, and it was because I had an ex-girlfriend, whatever scenario that was. And that was a painful song to hear for me. So I didn't listen to that for a long, long time, for like decades. I would like leave the room or shut it off or whatever it happened to be, right? And then eventually you get over it, or you make a choice to get over it. And there's nothing wrong with that song. It's not Bob Marley's fault. It's not even that person's fault. It's my fault. And so I think it's almost as unique as that, sort of, not quite, but it's sort of a unique situation like that, where it's like you're bringing context to the thing that isn't the actual thing. Does it make it icky? Sure. Do you want to make a conscious choice not to support them in the future? Yeah, totally. Does that make that thing bad? That's up to you. And I don't think that we should go around saying other people can't watch it because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially with the context of film, it is like, I mean, even looking at Lord of the Rings, it's like so many people worked on that. There was so much creativity and wonderful things happening that just like a few terrible people just involved in the project doesn't like it can't ruin the project because all of these beautiful things came from it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the Lord of the Rings movies. And, I mean, honestly, the Hobbit cartoon was one of the reasons I got into filmmaking, I think. Like, it was just my favorite thing. My brother and I used to watch it all the time when we were kids. And, I love that whole universe and what it's done for fantasy was really great. So yeah, I don't think you can pin it to that. If you didn't want to watch Brown Bunny because you thought the Vincent Gallo was really weird, it's a little bit different. That's like an auteur movie. That's like a very specific example. You're like, oh, there's a weird thing happened during that movie. Fair enough. But I don't think that transcends everything he's ever done. Or certainly not everything that Harvey Weinstein was ever a part of. Like that to me is too much.
Yeah, exactly. I guess here's two more questions on this front, one kind of silly and the other less so. But so first, it seems like the movie industry is very fixated for some reason on doing a lot of remakes. So for you, if you had the budget, what's something that you would want to remake in your own style or in your own way?
Oh man, you'd have to take something, in my opinion, that would be very, you'd have to switch the genre of it or something. It would just be very hard to take something that was already made and remake it, because if it was, or take something that was like, say if you did Inglourious Bastards. So like that's a good remake because it's not a remake and he changed the title and it's like that's not what the original movie was or anything. Like you're taking what you felt was the theme or you're taking a couple sparks from the movie or that was the original and then just like reimagining them. I think that's a way better way to go. There was that weird, Gus Van Sant movie, Psycho, that he did with Vince Vaughn. And that was like, he basically said the reason he did it was so that he could make a remake that was identical so that no one else would be able to make a remake, which is a really backwards way of like honoring a movie. That's, I don't know if that was like a post facto sort of thing. He decided after he's like, why did I make the exact same movie? Well, maybe so that other people can't. That's a good, I'll say that. I don't know what happened, but anyway, it's a very virtuous way to approach it theoretically, but probably is weird. But anyway, I would want to take something that I really liked, like a little. Within art, there are glimpses of things like these little nuts inside this little, Big Bang fucking flicker in something that you can take and you're like, I just want that thing. I want to encapsulate that thing into something else. And that doesn't mean that that's most of the story or most of the anything. I think that's why people fall in love with other people sometimes, is because they like just that one thing about them. And that's enough to like help them bridge all the other gaps. And hopefully, if you're going to stay together, then the other stuff actually works. But I think you can't underestimate that. And so I don't have a movie in mind that I would absolutely want to remake, but I think that there would be some little Genesis core there that I would do and make in a much different way. And, there's absolutely movies that nowadays they just couldn't do the CG or they couldn't do any CG. They couldn't do the effects that they wanted to back then that they could do now. I think horror movies could be a good example of that. We just watched It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And I don't watch very many horror movies, and I thought those movies were fucking awesome. I really like those movies. Yeah. And very much from a perspective of like, you just couldn't do that sort of stuff. There's a scene with an old lady in It Chapter 2, and I was like, dude, that was legit scary, creepy. Like that got me, and that's super rare in horror movies, any movies. And you just couldn't do that 30 years ago. I mean, how are you gonna make that scene with real things? You can't. It's impossible. So I mean, that's something that I think you could take a horror movie and remake it, and if you didn't lose the key part of what made it creepy, you could turn it into something better for sure. Yeah. And
then what advice do you have for other people that are starting out in filmmaking or just creative process, collaborative, that I guess in a way you kind of wish you had, or just advice in general?
Yeah, I mean, well, in terms of Brick Madness, I wish I would have got it out 5 years ago, I think, for sure. I just wish I would have got it done sooner. I mean, I had, what's a trip about that movie, too, is I have the kid, we shot, excuse me, have you seen Lego Movie, original one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, there's a kid at the end of Lego Movie, the actual real life kid with Will Ferrell. And he's in our movie. He was in our movie, in our Lego Movie, before he was in the Lego Movie.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, he had come back, he and his mom and other brother, his brother's in it too. And they'd come back to shoot more scenes or whatever. They'd done half of their work and they came back to do their half of their work a year later or whatever it was. And they were like, well, yeah, we were in this little thing. It was like Lego related, really weird. And then like later they're like, no, it was the Lego Movie. Like I'm in this, I'm the main character per se. So anyway, it was really interesting. So my point is, if my movie would have came out sooner to that, I think it would have been advantageous, not only for timeline wise, but with regards to how the whole system was, the whole independent distribution system. So if I could talk to me back then, I would have been like, just do it no matter what. Just get it done. Take a month off of work and make sure it finishes. I would say talking to me, man,
or to other young filmmakers or other people who are starting to try and make stuff.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to have an old man answer, and that's going to be like, pay attention to fundamentals, know what you're actually trying to create, learn the rules before you break them, understand basic premises of how cameras work and photography works and all that stuff. It's not that hard to learn, and it will never change, essentially. I mean, we'll get into 3D and holograph and all this other crazy stuff eventually, but like the basics of how a photo camera works are always going to be useful to you as a filmmaker. I would learn the basic structures of stories, the basic structure of a joke, like any of that stuff. So at least you understand like what is and isn't working. And, most importantly, I would just keep making stuff and try to make it better and keep working. Like, don't spend your time talking about how great it'll be, or all the filmmakers you like, or all the, try to soak your woes or whatever with why no one's watching your stuff. I mean, make stuff, make it better, keep getting better. And then you got to promote, and you got to think that, that's what a lot of people, I think probably people are better at it these days because of YouTube. But I think in my professional career, I've seen a lot of people that are like, well, I like to make movies. I don't like to make other people watch movies. I don't want to deal with the distribution part. I don't want to deal with the business part. I'm an artist. I'm not a businessman. And I'm like, yeah, no one gives a shit, dude. Either you do that or no one watches your movie. There's no two ways about it. And so making that not the icky part, I think would be important. If I could be like, just know going in that making the movie is a third, a quarter, a tenth of like the part you're going to actually have to do. Yeah. That's the, I have jet skis that are old and crappy, and it's not like I'm rich or anything, but I have jet skis, and it's like the couple hours, however, the day a year that I actually get to take the jet skis out and have fun on the lake that's the on set part. All the other stuff is making sure you take the batteries out so that all winter long they can not be ruining the batteries, making sure you get registration, making sure you take care of the air in the tires, like all this maintenance shit that no one wants to deal with. That's all the stuff that filmmaking is, so that you can go out there for a couple hours on a Sunday and go, wee! Yeah. Like that's filmmaking with your friends, and that's what you want to get toward. All the other shit you have to do to be able to get to that point, and most people don't want to do that part because it sucks. Yeah. 100%. I mean, you've played on stage, yeah? Yeah. And I mean, there's all the stuff around that, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's
playing on stage. That's the part you care about, right? That's when you're alive. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like every like rock like biopic is like, oh, like then they like get up on stage and rock everyone's faces off. But then it's like, yeah, like you're saying, it's like so many hours of rehearsal that like, or so many hours of practice, just like doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, I enjoy that part of the process too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the performing on stage is really exhilarating.
Yeah. But I would assume that your favorite part is not sending out Facebook invites to a thing that 95%
That's probably
of
my
the people
least
you
favorite
send
part.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That sucks. And that's what filmmaking is 100%. And like, got to get people there to this place to be in the audience, and they're not going to be seen much, and they're going to come up to me and they're going to be like, hey, in my shot, I want to. I'm like, dude, you are one of 20 people out there, and I'm sorry, but right now I do not have time for you. I'm just trying to focus on this thing, man. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's all that other auxiliary stuff that is very hard to get through, to get to the part that you love, which is like the actual on stage or the actual making the film or the actual like problem solving on set with your friends to like make this scene. Yeah. Which is exhilarating.
Switching gears to the hard questions. And yeah. So what is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Yeah, so I was brought up as a Baha'i, so member of the Baha'i faith. And so that's a fairly, what do you want to say? So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't do, there wasn't premarital sex. There's a number of things. So I was pretty straight edge. And so, or am still. And so that changed my life a lot, probably compared to most people. So I would think that would definitely be something that like, what do you want to say? Just put me in within different confines, no matter what. Yeah. Regardless of how my psyche was or anything else related to that. And, I still subscribe to that stuff. I think religion's a religion versus religious teachings versus the people you actually going to church, quote unquote, or wherever it happens to be. I think those are all sort of different parts of it. And so I think it's fair to dissect them in some ways and to deal with your relationship with God or a higher being of some sort is important, and it's hard to describe. That has its own usefulness and its own house, and also going to church and being with other people who are like-minded also has its usefulness and its own house. And having that inhabit your soul when you're not in church or rationally thinking about God also has its usefulness and its own house. And I think that when people in society, in my opinion, when they conflate the three and say that like take it or leave it with all three, I think that's a pretty myopic view of how something so transcendent would work.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you put that.
Thank you.
What is your definition of God?
So my wife now, at the time we weren't quite married when she was going through her philosophy class, and we had to do a bunch of stuff about God and how to prove God and all these other things. And, my definition of God is, I think the definition of unknowable, like the idea that we could understand a God makes that no longer a God. It is by definition that which is unknowable, and that which makes us not a God. Because if we could understand it, then we would also be gods, and then it would cease to be a God, and we would cease to be gods. We would just be, beings that were of a similar nature, which, in my opinion, or my understanding of it, would be that we can't be. So that's what a God is. It's basically an unknowable thing that is omnipresent and omniscient and omnipowerful and all those sort of things.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's the first time, at least on this podcast, that I've heard that form of definition.
And that's cool. It's from a very much like a logical, like, how can I prove that there's a God? And I'm like, well, I can't, but I can prove that you can't disprove it. Like, that's what I feel like I was trying to do, because I'm like, well, then a God wouldn't. And you're like, you're using words and logic that we use. Therefore, it would not apply, because it would not be a God. That's my like pretentious way of sort of figuring that out in my own mind, I guess.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
What is free will, and do you believe in it?
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of like of everything is predetermined for us, and that we have a destiny, and that all that stuff's all been decided. I don't really buy into that much. I think free will has sort of in my previous understanding of like church versus religion versus God or spirituality. I'm like, those are different silos to an extent. And I would say that free will is governed by like things that are of your soul, and that's very intangible, obviously. Things that are of your nature and things that are of your nurture, and those are very like simplistically biochemical. It's like you like going back to my movie Better. So one of the very interesting things we learned about is, or I learned about, the people talking to me knew about it, but is like you have more neurotransmitters in your gut than you do in your brain. And these neurotransmitters come in a variety of different types of bacteria. And they literally tell you what they want because they feed on certain types of foods. So you have Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes and a few other ones predominantly. And like some of them like sugar and some of them like sort of like vegetables, let's say, for example, oversimplifying. So these things tell you that when you feed them more sugar, the Firmicutes, I believe, you feed them more sugar, they want more sugar, they make more of themselves, they multiply within your gut, and then they ask for more sugar. Like that's sort of, from a very basic level, that's what's happening. So that means that your body, like what are you? Are you the things that are in your gut, the billions of things you don't really understand, they're just bacteria? Are you everything around you? You know, so like all those levels of like what makes me Justin is really hard to understand. And if you're talking from a purely physiological level, then I think you can say like, well, I'm all of that because those are all impulses that I have to deal with on any given moment. So fair enough. So then what are you outside of that? Like what's your soul, and what are the other intangible things that supersede that sort of level of pure chemical or electrical reaction in your body? So there's other stuff outside of that, I would believe, and I would believe in a soul, and I would believe that we can't prove. There's a thing called the 100th monkey. And so basically the premise of this is like there's 99 monkeys and they're doing something. They figure out how to use a tool. And then I'm going to get this wrong, but basically somehow on another island, the thing that these monkeys figured out, once they figured it out, the other monkeys on the other island figured it out too. But it only started as a chain reaction of these monkeys figuring it out, and then those like basically just absorbing this content from the global consciousness somehow of understanding like, oh shit, there's this new thing. And we're talking about monkeys. They're not like tapped into the internet. They're not like consciously thinking about this. They're not used to using tools. It's like none of that stuff. But this is I believe it was I'm fairly sure it was like an actual documented thing. Almost positive it was an actual realistic anthropological thing of some sort, or zoological. And so the point being is that we are not 100% in charge of our own thoughts, not from any of those levels, and certainly not from a global consciousness level. You know, I think this year is a very good indicator of that, like how we feel about the world and about our station and about the chaos that's inherent in the human condition. Like that shit's all ratcheted up to 10, obviously. And just like political and all that stuff is like so pervasive, right? It's just like hitting you and washing over you. And I think that certainly happened to me. Like, you know, one week I'm just like, oh, this is fucking rough, man. Like, why? I don't know. It's rough. Yeah. So I don't know if you feel the same, but.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this week has been, or like this past week has been that. So like, yeah, no, I totally.
Yeah. It just hits you and you don't, you know, are you like, is it because I saw that thing on Facebook and like, no, I feel like crap. And you're like, yeah, it seems deeper than that. It seems more symbiotically shitty than that. That's what I would say. So yeah, free choice. Yes, we have free choice, I think, but I think it is on a much more subdivided level than we would ever be able to understand. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole like process as you were thinking aloud is exactly why I love asking that question.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
What happens when we die?
I'm pretty traditionalist with that sort of thing. Reincarnation doesn't totally make sense to me, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I just, I don't get it, buy it, whatever. As a Baha'i, we believe that essentially you are, when you're in the womb versus when you're a human versus when you're in the afterlife, those are sort of similar states of being. So for the person within that context, or for the life. So when you're in the womb, you don't realize that you're a baby. You don't have a concept of that. You don't know where you're going or what you're doing or any of that stuff. You're doing a thing, and you're able to what do you want to say? You're not consciously making choices about things necessarily, but your body is being prepared within its little world for the next world, this world. And when your body is properly prepared and all the things happen as they are supposed to happen, then you come out and you're, a bouncing baby boy ready to take on the world. And more or less what the Baha'i teachings are saying is like, that is akin to what you are then in the spiritual world. So once you die, and I believe that we go on and something else happens with us, and I believe that we don't really understand it, and we can't really understand it, just like I wouldn't be able to understand it if I were in the womb, what this world would be about, nor could anyone explain it to me, because I just wouldn't, it doesn't make sense to me. It's a whole different order of magnitude of understanding. And so when you die, you go on to the next world. And that is one, not of bodies, obviously. That is one that is closer to God and more spiritual from a simplistic viewpoint. And that means that we can't really understand it, but it is a different thing, and that we are preparing our bodies, our souls, rather, in this world for that new reality. And so that's what I like. That's what I believe in. I don't know that there's an easy way to prove or disprove those sorts of things. And so that's, I would say, what gives me comfort and allows me to make good choices, hopefully, most of the time. If you're trying to take care of your soul, that's probably for someone who's in the position to be able to have that be choices that they can make and feel like they have agency over, then I think that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah. That's cool.
If I were a murderer, it's like, shit, man. Yeah, I mean, but I'm being serious. It's like people who are in that situation are not there because everything was great when they were kids. They're not there because these are all like, it's just like everyone, something that I say is like, and it's sort of a free will sort of thing too, because it's very specific to that almost, is like, I'm going to muck up the word slightly, but people always do what they're capable of doing in that instant that they're doing it. So like the moment before there's infinite free will and infinite choices, the moment of it, they're doing what the trillions of the infinite amount of things that have interacted to get them to that moment. That's what they were capable of doing at that moment. Or else they would have done something else. And then that would have been the thing that they were capable of at that moment. Yeah. And so like, I can be mad at someone the instant, and I'm talking, a billionth of a second or whatever. The instant before they do the terrible thing, I can be like, I can have a problem with that and I can be mad at that. But I sort of have to set that aside for the moment that they do the action, because like clearly they were compelled by the rest of their existence into that moment, or else it wouldn't have happened. And so that gives me a little bit of like solace with regards to what people do. And I'm not really speaking of murder, but that's the like, obviously the, what do you want to say? The infinite example of that, the logical conclusion of that. But I'm talking about just being an asshole or whatever, just doing a jerk thing to you. You're like, it's like, I get why he did that. Like, I get why that happened right now. And I'm mad at him. I'm mad at him or her or whatever. But I know that, like, there's reasons. And that sucks. But, like, I get it. So, I don't know. I tend to feel bad for people who make bad choices a lot of times because I know that they didn't get there alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, I like that a lot.
I said it and I was like, I like these words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I spent a lot of time thinking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So.
Me too, which is why I ask these questions.
Yeah, totally.
How do you determine what good behavior is?
I look at the world in a utilitarian sort of point of view more than other point of views, but I don't know all that stuff. So, I mean, I think that's probably a fairly ignorant way to approach it because I just don't understand enough about the names of all this stuff. But anyway, I like utilitarian. It makes sense to my mind. And in a lot of ways, that's like how much good are you creating or how much good are you destroying, and seeing it from that point of view. And that's like why are you, I go around pick up trash or whatever. Like I have a big problem with like noise pollution or actual pollution or trash or things like that, or like parking in the wrong spot, or all these like things that people don't give a shit about usually. And for some reason, to my brain, it just gets fixated on those sorts of things. And then I have to remind myself to look at the big picture. But like that stuff matters to me. And so from a utilitarian point of view, I'm always sort of arguing with myself about like what matters in the big picture versus what matters in the small things to make the big picture better, and I think that's the only way I can sort of gauge a lot of those things. It's hard because you get into difficult territory, because then at some point you're like, well, what should we do? And you're like, well, eugenics makes sense. And then you're like, nope, can't cross that line. That's a bad thing. So you have to temper it with the other stuff that makes us human and allows us to not cross lines, basically, which is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I mean, pretty much you said utilitarianism. That's like pretty much how you determine it. So
yeah. I think I am not one who subscribes to the concept that there is no absolute good or absolute that there are not good things or bad things, and that everything is just a thing. I don't think that's accurate by any means. And so I think we do have ways to classify that sort of stuff. And I do think it's important within humankind that we all have to live together to be able to sort of agree on that stuff. And that's why we have laws. That's why we have even what you would say is social niceties, and in the way that we behave, the way that I'm behaving with you when we have our conversation and all that stuff. I think there are important rules within that stuff. Then unless you have a really good reason to break them, don't break them.
Yeah.
I think that matters. And that's part of being a good person.
Yeah. So there's more of these deep questions that I want to ask, but this episode is already going like a little bit longer than I wanted to. And so I'm going to continue asking you these questions on the second podcast. So, but for now, just where can we find you and your things? Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was fun. So you can find me on, I don't do Instagram a whole lot, but it's easy to remember. It's at Justin Makes Movies. So that's one thing. My movie Brick Madness is on brickmadnessmovie.com. And you can find me on Facebook. If you can spell my name right, you can find me anywhere, because I'm the only Justin McAleece that I've ever heard of, spelled the actual way that my name is spelled. So if you type me in Google, I'm the first multiple pages because I'm the only one, more or less. Yeah. But yeah, hit me up on Instagram, and I would love to have you go to watch my movie when it comes out. And then bettermovie.com will be the other thing. Yeah.
You can find everything that I do on my website, SantiagoRamones.com. I make music. Bloom is available now, streaming everywhere. Put it on in the background or show it to your friends so you can all enjoy it together. You can also buy it on Bandcamp and get bonus content so you can sit alone in the dark with your headphones on and listen to the album in its entirety while reading and looking at the bonus content. I also make music with Power Cycle, an experimental electronic trio. Our first completely improvised album, Too Many Damn Cables, is streaming everywhere. To support this podcast, leave reviews, comments, tell your friends about it, and buy my music, because by supporting me, you're supporting the podcast. I always end the podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.